Hello and welcome to another episode of Next Week in Gaming. Next week is September week 2 and yes, I've shaved all my hair off. As usual, we'll be covering reviews, early access releases, bundles, deals, interviews and all of that good stuff. So first up we have one of two bundles, and that is Warner Bros. Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of Mordor did a little bit of a different thing in terms of gameplay compared to the rest of the Lord of the Rings IP, and it actually worked out pretty well for it. And I believe it was probably one of those first games that actually had 2K and 4K resolution textures you could download, so it turned out to be pretty great, except it, murdered a lot of people's systems. This game is on sale by itself, except the catch is that it comes with the Season Pass and all existing DLC, or at least all of the known existing DLC anyway. So as well as the base game, you will be getting 9, 10, 11, 12 pieces of DLC, a lot of DLC, basically adding more content, more maps, more characters, more everything, more weapons, more moves, everything that you ever remembered in Shadow of Mordor, there's just more of it. So if you're one of those cheapskate guys that would like, yeah, this game was actually pretty cool, I might like to play it, but I'll wait for a Steam seasonal sale like Halloween or Christmas, well, you don't need to wait any longer, because Bundle Stars have this game and the whole season pass for £8.99. So if you were one of those people, and not like me, who got it free with a graphics card, this is your time to buy it. So next up you have the Humble Tom Clancy bundle, which is where a lot of the heavyweights come in, and weirdly enough the first tier actually has some of the best games. So you've got the original Rainbow Six with Athena Sword and Raven Shield, which is by far the best Rainbow Six games in the entire series. Like if you've never played those, they might not have aged so well, but if you're looking for a proper tactical shooter where you plan your missions ahead and the AR does its job, you should definitely get those. And it also has Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, which was also the best Splinter Cell ever made ever, and that one has actually aged quite well, and I've played it more than I can count, I think. Another interesting thing is that it comes with Rainbow Six Siege multiplayer beta, so you've only got multiplayer access, not access to the main game. This is probably worth it for those of you who are definitely interested in buying the game at a future date and just want to play around and see if it's for you. It's only going to cost you $1, so you may as well get some games alongside that. Also comes with Vegas on the first tier, but Vegas is meh. Vegas is an average, decent-ish game. Second tier is slightly less interesting. You've got Vegas 2, you've got Splinter Cell Conviction, which is the last game that Mike Ironside voiced Sam Fisher, which is an okay game. It's relatively average, enjoyable, quite short, but it's okay. Things start to change from there on out, so that's probably the last decent Splinter Cell game that they made. And of course, this tier is the tier that they're adding more games onto next Tuesday. Final tier, you've got Advanced Warfighter and Splinter Cell Blacklist, which is when the new voice actor comes in, the new look of Sam Fisher comes in, and you end up playing a 50-year-old Sam Fisher who has the body of a 28-year-old and the voice of a male model, so it's okay. The multiplayer is actually relatively good. I played a bit of the multiplayer and enjoyed it. Lots of weapon customization if you're looking for a game like that. But other than that, top tier, personally, I don't find it's very worth it. Or you can go to the full-on expensive $75 tier and get yourself a free t-shirt. But tier 1, totally worth it if you don't have those games. So our first release is going to be coming out sometime in Q3. We don't know exactly when, but we know it's coming out soon. And that is Warhammer's End Times Vermintide. Now, this is one of the many in the Warhammer Games Workshop IP handout, and this one's being developed by Fat Shark. So this is going to be a story-led survival game. It's going to be a first-person melee/shooter. You're looking at muskets, swords, and crazy-ass Warhammer-style stuff. This is original Warhammer, not Warhammer 40k, so if you think from that era. And basically it's going to be, I guess, sort of a Left 4 Dead-ish style game, except if instead of undead people you've got big old rat men. You've got 5 classes to play as, and this is primarily, a 4-person co-op shooter game where you're just going to go around and survive and then be sort of told the story as you go along and be led along and that sort of thing. It looks pretty good. It's, Skyrim style. I have a sword in one hand and a gun in the other and go shoot and bash things. It looks relatively pretty, I have to say. I can see that a lot of effort has been made into some of these environments, but with a relatively unknown studio like Fat Shark, and we don't really have an awful lot to go on other than the fact it's a survival game. This game could probably go either way, so here's praying it's a decent one. So the next game is releasing on Thursday the 10th of September, and it's by Triangle Studios. It's called Cross of the Dutchman. I've been following this for a couple of months, in fact probably since the start of its first announcement, and it's more of a story-driven RPG. It's going to be hack and slash, that sort of thing, although relatively light on the loot system and more story-driven. It's following a bit of a folklore legend about the Dutchman and his famous sword, which is kept in a museum to this day. So you'll generally be running around and smashing up Saxons and following the story, although the general write-up on Steam and on the website is actually pretty light, and even the PR emails I've been getting are also very light on actual physical content of the game and gameplay like that. So for now, I'm just assuming that it's going to be Diablo-esque, but not much on the loot, and you're just going to be following a story. But it could be a pretty damn good one. It's very original in its title and original in damn near every way. Sort of Torchlight E1 graphics, but a bit more angular and polygonal. So yeah, I hope that one turns out okay, although I feel like the lack of loot and lack of details might not go in its favour. So the next game is one that's coming out on Early Access next week on Thursday the 10th of September, and it's by Drago Entertainment, and this one's called OtherOne. It's an MMORPG similar to titles like Firefall, except it's going to be set in a slightly more cyberpunky futuristic setting. This one's going to be similar to Guild Wars in that it's going to be free to play, and you just pay for the game outright and any additional DLCs and expansions. And of course in their write-up on the Early Access page it says, oh, we won't be paid to win, but you all know how that works. And bizarrely, when I read their write-up, it kind of looked like they really wanted to try the subscription model, but we all know that that's not really going to fly nowadays, especially since WoW is practically one of the only remaining MMOs, and, well, that one's dropping subscribers like no tomorrow. So this one's going to be general MMORPG gameplay. It's based on some novels by a guy called Tad Williams, and it has a very Skrillexy soundtrack on the trailer. So I'm not sure if the in-game soundtrack is going to be similar, but if it is, it might be a little bit distracting. So there's not many details on this game other than the fact it's going to have all this wonderful loot system, quest systems. There's no real massive storyline apart from the one that you see in the Tad Williams books. So this could be an interesting MMORPG, but you know how all of these recent free-to-play titles tend to just sort of flop. So it could go either excellent or catastrophically badly. We'll just have to wait and see. And finally, on to our review title for next week, which will drop on Thursday the 10th of September, is Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain. So we finally managed to score ourselves a key for this game, and we'll be reviewing that next week. So obviously I talked a bit of trash about Konami last week and their peculiar multiplayer pay for the forward operating base craziness, but of course I have always loved Metal Gear Solid games. It's just that I cannot bear to sit through too many of those cutscenes. However, they have promised that, you know, these new Ground Zeroes and the Phantom Pain have operated the storyline on a slightly different level, and so that the cutscenes are a little bit less intrusive, annoying, long, irritating, and just generally taking up more of the actual gameplay than, you know, the rest of the damn game. So this game is going to feature floating sheep into the air along with men, and generally approaching things on a stallion from any angle you could possibly desire. So I am a sucker for stealth games, although I do enjoy just sort of dropping all shit and then just going crazy with, you know, a minigun on a helicopter. So it appeals to me. So our review will be up of that next week. That's it from us at NextPowerUp. Join us next week on Thursday for our regular weekly review, and of course next Saturday for our next Week in Gaming episode. Last week was a pretty big week for AAA releases, so let us know which of the Mad Max and Metal Gear Solid you decided to buy, and whether you regret that decision entirely. Obviously I'll be playing Metal Gear Solid for the next week, so please try not to spoil too much for me, but let me know if there's any special sheep I should fulcrum up into the air. Of course, leave your comments in the section below for everything you've been playing, and we hope you've enjoyed this new episode of Next Week in Gaming with slightly less hair. Join us next week. Cheers.